إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اقتفى أثره واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. This year, the new year of the Hijrah, brings to many of us a new chapter, a new start. And many of us Muslims like to look at this, or even people living like to look at new milestones and new starts as a new beginning and as a new page. For many of us, this resembles a new chapter of our life where Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us the opportunity to see another month, a month of blessings, this month of Muharram. For many of us, this month marks a new beginning and a continued blessing that we are still in Al-Ashhur Al-Hurum, the 4 months or 3 consecutive months that Allah Azza wa Jal has made sacred, which are Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram. This month has a joyous occasion, which is the day of Ashura. It's the day that Allah Azza wa Jal protected Musa alayhi salam, and we mark it as Muslims by fasting this day and following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam by fasting a day before it or a day after it. However, not all new beginnings wipe that which comes before it, or not every new beginning wipes every single page that comes before it. With a new beginning comes a responsibility for us as Muslims to reflect and look back. With a new beginning comes a responsibility as us as individuals to hold ourselves accountable, and for us as communities to look back, especially for us as Muslims within the UK and within Manchester specifically. We look back at the year of 1441 للهجرة, 1441 Hijri. We look back at that year and we see how was the Ramadan for us in that year. How was it for us as a community, how Eid occurred and what happened? What happened to us as Muslim communities? What were our highlights as Muslim communities? And unfortunately, and not to look at the half empty side of the glass, much of what's happened to us as Muslims has been negative. And it's a continuation. And even though Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed us with a new beginning, we carry forth sorrow and sadness from the past year. We look back, yesterday being the start of Muharram, we buried a 17-year-old that belonged to our community. We buried a young brother that passed away in the last year. However, his death was carried on to this year, and we buried him. And knowing, unfortunately for many of us as Muslims, knowing that this will not be the last janazah of someone that we feel was snatched of their life, of someone that we feel like their life was ended too early, and that is a sad reality for us as Muslims. We look back at it communally, and we look back at the failures of us as a community, and many would push it onto the parents as a whole. If someone passed away, then it's definitely the killer's fault. And if someone's passed away, then it's definitely their fault. And if someone's passed away, then I have nothing to do with it, because neither was I there, neither was I a witness to stop it, and neither did I live that lifestyle. For us as Muslims, the accountability, we may not be accountable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, but as we mentioned last time, that this is a reality that if we choose to ignore it as individuals, only eventually it will come back and hurt us as individuals. You, Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed you by not inflicting your family, by not inflicting your siblings, your brothers, your siblings, your sons, your children, whatever it may be, with this calamity. However, others from the community have suffered. And not one, not two, it's not an isolated incident, it's not just one story or one-off story. There's been many of them in the last year and the years before it. And we look back at this year hoping that we will be better. But hope can't change reality. It's action that changes reality. We look back at the last year and we think, how are we going to make this year any different for us if we are not going to make any changes? And knowing Allah Azza wa Jal does not change the condition of people. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ, except when they change their own condition. حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Knowing that as a principle, Allah Azza wa Jal does not say Allah Azza wa Jal changes some people's situation and doesn't change others. He does not change people's situation. And with that understanding, know that even if your situation looks better, then it hasn't changed deep down. Because Allah Azza wa Jal tells you it hasn't changed. So for us as a community, knowing our situation hasn't changed, what can we say or what can we do to make sure that 1442 is different to the previous year? What can we do to make this year, whatever start you want to mark, whether it's the milestone of a new Islamic year, whether it's the milestone of a birthday for an individual or a new year that they were born in, whether it's the milestone of a new academic year that we're starting in 2 weeks, regardless of what the milestone and regardless of where you want to draw the start line, the question is, what's the plan to make sure we finish better than we are? What's the start or what's the plan for us as individuals and what's the plan for us as communities? This masjid has had the unfortunate responsibility of having to bury that brother. And for many of us as attendees, if we were ever in that situation, we would turn back to this masjid. However, as we've mentioned time and time again, the funeral service isn't the only service that's provided in this masjid. And it isn't the main service. And before someone brings their kid to use the funeral service of the masjid, there are plenty of opportunities for us to intervene. As individuals, as communities, and as a masjid. However, the question is, do we want to bear other people's problems? Do we want to be held responsible for what other people are going through? Many of us as Muslims that are not involved in this lifestyle or have no involvement or know nothing, once we walk past some of these youngsters, instead of taking the responsibility of advice and the older brother, some of us cross the streets, some of us act blind, some of us put their head down and walk on and make dua that I just ask Allah Azza wa Jal that it's not my kid. And this is the reason why the Muslim community will not change. Or this is one of the reasons why the Muslim community will not change. Other reasons? All of them will involve how far we are from Allah Azza wa Jal. Or how much further we have traveled from Allah Azza wa Jal. Because as it says, if you find yourself far from Allah Azza wa Jal, ask yourself what's changed, because the destination is the same. Allah Azza wa Jal always says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. If my servants ask about me, then I am close. Allah Azza wa Jal will always forever be there. But how far we are from individuals. When we hear the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ad-deen nasiha, religion is advice. And we know as individuals deep down, who needs the most advice in this community? Is those Muslims that are not praying. Is those brothers and sisters that are so far away from the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. Is those people that are in the most uncomfortable situations. But I don't want to drag myself to that level. And we look down and belittle others, thinking that we are better just because there are some people right now living a lifestyle that Allah Azza wa Jal prohibited, yet we are in the masjid. And we know the story. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that from the previous nations, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that the angels were commanded to destroy and perish a nation. They said to him, "Oh Allah, there's in it a servant of you that worships you and is so on and so forth and does so much good." And then Allah Azza wa Jal told them, start with him. Start with him. Why? Because he accepted to live in this society. And many of us have accepted to live in this society as individuals. And it's not wrong to prioritize, because Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Protect yourselves and your families. It's not wrong to prioritize. However, what makes up communities except a collection of families? So we have a responsibility for our community as individuals. And this year, as we look at a brighter year, inshallah, it can't just be based on hope. It has to be based on understanding that change will not come until we change that which is within ourselves. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله على إحسانه والشكر له على توفيقه وامتنانه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له تعظيما لشانه وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أما بعد. Change could come in many different forms, and for us as Muslims, or as I see from my limited perspective, for us as Muslims living in the UK, change must come in the way we view the problem first and foremost. For you as an individual, as we mentioned, you may not see it affecting someone close to you. It doesn't mean it's not your problem. You don't feel it hitting home. It doesn't mean it's not close to your home. You don't feel it, that it's a problem within our society, doesn't necessarily mean it'll never become a problem in your home or your household. As a Muslim, you need to view this problem and this responsibility as my problem. When a brother dies, or a sister dies, or someone dies, that his death could have been preventable if Allah Azza wa Jal willed for it to be. However, not just could have been prevented, because we know the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal cannot be stopped. His death, no one intervened to stop it. Up until the point someone has made a choice, and I'm not speaking about this brother because I don't know the circumstances surrounding his death. I'm speaking about many individuals that have passed before him. No one has intervened up until the point that they received the fatal bullet or stab. No one took onus, no one took responsibility. It's easy to blame and feel like I have put £10 in the masjid's donation box. The masjid needs to own this problem, and the masjid needs to start tackling it. However, we as people need to make sure that we make the change within our community for us to eventually make the change in the next generation. I ask you, when was the last time you saw someone that you felt is far away from Allah Azza wa Jal and took yourself down from your pedestal and came down to give advice? When was the last time for you as a Muslim that you saw someone living a lifestyle that you felt disgusted by, whether it's drugs, whether it's carrying a weapon, or whether it's something else, and instead of you automatically judging them, you thought there might be a reason, I can intervene? When was the last time you went out of your way to give advice to someone? It doesn't even necessarily have to be them, to their parents, to offer yourself support. Many of the Muslims that we have growing up here as second generation immigrants or even third generation immigrants are specialists in certain fields. Whether it's psychology, whether it's criminology, whatever it may be. How many of those individuals have felt that my services could be used in the masjid and I can come and offer some time for the masjid's sake? How many people have felt that as an individual this person could be struggling and I specialize in careers and I could help this individual grow their CV, and these collective interventions will change this person. However, we view it as a very simple thing. I am more fortunate. I thank Allah Azza wa Jal. Some of us don't even thank Allah Azza wa Jal. We thank Allah Azza wa Jal. We are not inflicted by this, and we move on. However, this eventually will lead into a collective collapse of us as a society. It's the responsibility of us as individuals, and we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to Allah, in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, that we will be held accountable, that if we saw something wrong and we are able to, we didn't step in and change it. Now in the hadith, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا, whoever amongst you sees something wrong, the Prophet ﷺ said, فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ, let him change it with his hands. And then he didn't say if he doesn't want to, he said if he isn't capable of changing it with his hands, then let him change it with his tongue. And he didn't say if you don't want to change it with your tongue, he said if you are unable to, incapable of changing it with your tongue, then hate it with your heart. And that's the lowest of the low of Iman. So for you as a Muslim seeing the problem, are you happy with being from the lowest of the low when it comes to Iman? Or do we all want to earn the highest reward, and the highest reward just isn't in just being in the front row in the masjid? It's in making sure that people are coming closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Saving a life. We all know, and it's easy for us to repeat the ayah, فَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Saving a life is as if you saved all of humanity. But saving a life doesn't just mean donating to someone back home or donating to a family that's struggling. Save a life here in the UK. Save someone here from a bullet. Save someone from a knife stab. Use your speciality. And everyone, if you are not a specialist in this, everyone has the ability and the reason. One, to instead of judge, offer advice. And don't feel like this is an individual that will turn away from my advice. This is an individual that will not accept advice from me because he's on road or he's dressed a certain way. The prophets, their advice was rejected, some of them for 950 years. You are nothing better and I am nothing better. This year is a new chapter. It could be seen as a new chapter with continued problems. It could be seen as a new chapter for us and individuals to reflect, to turn back, to make a change so that we can influence our collective community. And if you as an individual are shy, are unable to, the least you can do is ponder about this problem. And if you have a possible solution, come and approach someone that can make a difference. Bring your possible solutions to the masjid. Discuss it with those that can make a difference. And if the least you can do is hate it with your heart, then hate it with your heart. And don't feel like I am going to lift my nose up and I am not part of the problem, then surely I am part of the good ones. No. Because if you are happy with the problem continuing, believe me, none of us are part of the good ones. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. أيها المسلمون إن الله أمركم بأمر بدأ فيه بنفسه وثنى بملائكته وثلث بكم أيها المسلمون فقال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأقم الصلاة.